The judge was about to send an innocent man to prison until a 12-year-old girl stood up and shouted, "My dad is innocent, and I'll prove it." Everyone laughed at her until she uncovered the one clue that changed everything. This is a story of how a poor black girl fought the system, exposed the truth, and saved her father's life. Welcome to Brainfuel, where ordinary people do the impossible. Here, we tell stories that ignite your mind and touch your heart. Stories of courage, hope, and unstoppable determination. Because sometimes the smallest voice can create the biggest change. So sit back and let this story remind you what faith and love can truly do. The courtroom was silent. So silent, you could hear the ticking of the wall clock echo through the room. Everyone's eyes were locked on the man sitting at the defense table, his wrists cuffed, his face tired but proud. And then, from the back of the courtroom, a voice broke through the stillness. It wasn't loud, but it carried a force that made everyone turn. "My dad is innocent, and I'll prove it." The judge's gavel slammed down instantly. "Order in the court," he shouted. But the moment had already taken over. The reporters scribbled furiously, the crowd whispered, and even the prosecutor froze. All eyes turned toward the small figure standing near the door, a 12-year-old black girl named Zara Reed. She looked so small in her oversized pink hoodie, her jeans slightly torn at the knees, her sneakers faded from years of wear. But her eyes burned with something fierce, something unbreakable. Her father, Malcolm Reed, turned around in shock. His rough hands tightened around the edge of the table. "Zara," he whispered. She nodded, trembling but refusing to back down. The judge frowned deeply. "Young lady, this is a courtroom, not a playground. Sit down immediately." But Zara didn't move. Her voice cracked, but her words came out strong. "Please, Your Honor, my dad didn't do it. You're making a mistake." The courtroom fell into an uneasy silence. Even the bailiff hesitated, unsure whether to escort her out or just let her speak. Malcolm's lawyer, an overworked public defender, sighed and gently motioned for her to sit. But Zara's feet stayed planted. Her father, wearing an orange prison jumpsuit, looked older than his years. He had once been a proud construction worker. Strong, dependable, a man who never missed a day's work. But life had been cruel. The factory layoffs came, then the bills piled up, and eventually the police came to their small apartment with a warrant. They said he had robbed a corner store, armed, dangerous, and caught on camera. But Zara knew better. She knew exactly where her father was at night. He was home with her, fixing her bike chain that had snapped on her way back from school. They had spent hours in their dimly lit living room, him covered in grease, her holding the flashlight. He even burned his hand on the chain, laughing it off as he told her, "CZ, I told you, nothing's too broken to fix." That was who her father was, a man who fixed things, not broke them. But now, there he was, trapped behind a metal rail, accused of something that didn't make sense. Zara's grandmother, sitting beside her in the courtroom, tried to pull her back down. "Zara, baby, sit. Don't make it worse," she whispered. But Zara shook her head. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice didn't tremble this time. "If nobody's going to fight for him, then I will." The judge sighed heavily, pinching the bridge of his nose. "This is highly inappropriate. Bailiff." But before he could finish, Malcolm stood up. "Your Honor," he said, his deep voice steady but soft. "She's just a kid. Please, don't punish her for caring." The judge paused. He could see the emotion in Malcolm's eyes, the exhaustion of a man who had already lost too much. He nodded once. "Very well. But young lady, I suggest you let your father's lawyer handle this case." Zara swallowed hard and sat down slowly, her heart pounding so loud it drowned out the rest of the hearing. But in her mind, a single thought burned. They're wrong. They're all wrong. As the trial continued, Zara barely heard a word. The prosecutor spoke about fingerprints, a blurry video, a witness who claimed they saw Malcolm near the scene. It sounded convincing, too convincing. But deep down, she knew something was off. Her dad never went out that night. And if they were wrong about that, what else were they wrong about? After the session ended, the guards led Malcolm away. He looked back at his daughter. giving her a faint smile that broke her heart. "Don't worry, baby girl," he said softly. "Everything's going to be okay." But Zara wasn't sure anymore. That night, she sat by the window of their small apartment, staring out at the flickering streetlights. Her grandmother had fallen asleep on the couch, the TV still whispering in the background. Their bills were stacked on the kitchen table, and the fridge made a low hum, but inside her, everything was loud. She pulled out her old cracked laptop. The keys were sticky, the screen half flickering, but it was all she had. She typed corner store robbery video into the search bar, and there was the same footage everyone had seen on the news. The man in the video wore a black hoodie, his face partially covered. He waved a gun, demanded cash, and ran. Zara leaned in, pausing the video frame by frame. Something felt strange. She zoomed in on the man's neck and froze. There, visible for just a moment, was a tattoo, a snake coiled around a dagger. Her dad didn't have a tattoo. He hated tattoos. Zara's eyes widened. "Wait, that's not him." She printed the frame, her hands shaking with excitement. The paper came out smudged, but she didn't care. It was something, a clue, a spark of truth in a world that had gone dark. She looked at the photo and whispered, "I'm going to prove it, Daddy." Then she went to her closet and pulled out a cardboard box filled with her dad's old things, photos, tools, and his broken wristwatch. She placed the photo inside that box. "You always fix things," she said softly. "Now it's my turn." As the night stretched on, Zara stayed up researching, writing down notes, connecting dots only a determined child could see. Her back hurt, her eyes burned, but she didn't stop. Because to her, this wasn't just about winning a case. It was about saving the only person who'd ever believed in her. When dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight hit her tear-streaked face. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "They think I'm just a kid, but they'll see." For the first time since her father's arrest, she felt hope, not because someone promised it, but because she had found it herself. Zara stood up, clutching that printed image in her hand, her reflection glowing faintly in the window. Behind her, the city was waking up. But for Zara Reed, a new mission had just begun. She wasn't rich. She wasn't powerful. She was just a poor black girl from the wrong side of town. But in her heart burned something no one could buy, the courage to fight for the truth. And that night, as the world slept, one little girl became her father's last hope. The next morning, Zara walked down the cracked sidewalk, clutching the printed photo in her small hands. The air was cold, the kind that made you wrap your arms around yourself. She hadn't slept much, but her eyes carried fire. Her father was innocent, and this piece of paper, this blurry image of a tattoo, was her proof. She stepped into the gray, gloomy building of the public defender's office. The waiting area smelled like coffee and old paper. Adults in wrinkled clothes sat quietly, some hopeless, some angry. Zara's legs barely reached the floor as she sat waiting, swinging her feet nervously. When her dad's lawyer, Mr. Wilkins, finally came out, he looked exhausted. His shirt was half untucked, his tie crooked. He'd probably already handled 5 cases that morning. "Mr. Wilkins." Zara ran up to him, holding out the photo. "Look, this proves my dad didn't do it. The man in the video, he's got a tattoo. My dad doesn't." Wilkins glanced down, sighed, and rubbed his temples. "Zara, sweetie, I admire your effort, but that's not enough to convince a jury. It's just one blurry frame." "But you don't understand," she insisted. "He doesn't have a tattoo. You could check. You've seen him." He knelt down to her level, his voice gentle but tired. "I know you love your dad, but the system, it doesn't work the way you think. It's not about what's true. It's about what can be proven." Zara's voice broke. "But this is proof." He stood back up. "I'm sorry, kid. There's nothing more we can do unless we find new evidence." Then he walked away, disappearing behind a door. Zara just stood there, small, heartbroken, and angry. She could feel the unfairness of it all pressing down on her chest. It wasn't just that her father was behind bars. It was that nobody cared enough to see the truth. As she left the building, the sky opened up and rain began to fall. But she didn't run for cover. She just kept walking, the paper slowly soaking through in her hands. By the time she reached the corner store, the one her father was accused of robbing, the rain had stopped. The neon sign flickered. Open. She hesitated for a second, then pushed the door open. Inside, Mr. Patel, the shop owner, was stacking cans on a shelf. He looked up in surprise. "Zara, what are you doing here?" "Please, Mr. Patel," she said, trying to sound grown-up. "I just need to see the security video again." His eyes darted nervously toward the counter. "Oh, no, child. Police took everything. I can't get involved." Zara's voice cracked. "But you were there that night. You saw the man, didn't you?" He sighed. "I saw someone in a hoodie. Couldn't see his face. I just wanted to stay alive. You understand?" Zara lowered her head, defeated. I just need something to help my dad." For a moment, Mr. Patel watched her, this little girl standing there, drenched in the rain, shaking but refusing to give up. Finally, his expression softened. He walked behind the counter, reached under the register, and pulled out a small USB drive. "Police took the main copy," he whispered, glancing toward the window. "But I made a backup just in case. Maybe it can help you." Zara's eyes widened. Thank you so much." She ran all the way home, her heart pounding faster than ever. She rushed into the apartment, plugged the USB into her old laptop, and held her breath as the file loaded. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. She hit play. There was the robbery. The man burst through the door, waving a gun. Zara froze the image again and again, studying every frame. Then she noticed something she hadn't before. When the man turned to grab the money, the security glass behind him reflected part of the parking lot. And a car. Zara leaned closer, eyes straining. There, a license plate, blurry but visible. She scribbled the numbers down. Her hands shook as she whispered, This might be it." The next morning, she went straight to the police station. The officers at the front desk barely looked up when she walked in. "Can I help you, miss?" one of them asked flatly. "Yes," Zara said, clutching the USB. "My dad's in jail for a robbery he didn't do. But I found something, a license plate. You can check it. Please, just look." The officer exchanged a tired look with his partner. "Kid, we can't just reopen cases because you saw something online." "But it's not online. It's real evidence," she shouted. "You're supposed to find the truth, right?" People in the waiting area turned to look. Zara's eyes filled with tears. She was about to give up when a voice behind her said, "Let me see that." A tall man with gray hair and a kind face stepped forward. His badge read Detective Ramos. He knelt beside her. "You said your dad's name was Reed?" Zara nodded. "Malcolm Reed. They said he robbed the store, but he didn't. I have proof." He studied her face for a long second, then took the USB gently from her hands. "All right, Zara, I'll take a look. Can you write your phone number here?" Zara nodded quickly, scribbling it down. He gave her a small smile. "You did good, kid. Most people wouldn't come this far." When she left the station, she felt something she hadn't felt in months, a flicker of hope. But as the days passed, that hope began to fade again. No one called. No one visited. Her grandmother told her gently, "Sometimes the world don't move as fast as our hearts want it to." Still, every day after school, Zara checked her phone. Every ring made her jump. Every silence broke her a little more. Then, one evening, there was a knock on the door. Her heart skipped. She opened it, and there stood Detective Ramos, holding his hat in his hands and a small smile on his face. "Zara," he said, "you were right." Zara froze. "What do you mean?" "We ran that license plate. The car was stolen 2 days before the robbery. The fingerprints on it belong to a man named Curtis Lane. He's got a record for armed robbery and assault." Her grandmother gasped. "Lord have mercy." Zara's voice trembled. "So what happens now?" Ramos smiled. "Your father's getting a new trial. And this time, he's not walking there alone." Zara's knees nearly gave out. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she hugged the detective. Thank you so much." He patted her back. "No, kid, you did this. You found the truth. When the door closed behind him, Zara turned to her grandmother, sobbing with joy. I told him, Grandma, I told him he didn't do it. Her grandma smiled through her tears. Your daddy's going to be proud of you, baby. Real proud. That night, for the first time in a long time, Zara slept peacefully. Her photo, her notes, and the USB drive lay beside her pillow like trophies. She had fought for her dad when no one else would. And now, justice was finally catching up. The courthouse was packed. Reporters, neighbors, strangers. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. The air was thick with whispers, tension, and flashing cameras. But Zara didn't hear any of it. She was standing outside the courtroom doors, holding her grandmother's hand so tight it hurt. Her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. This was it, the day she'd been dreaming about, the day her dad might finally walk free. Inside, the same judge from before sat behind the bench, his expression unreadable. Malcolm Reed was brought in, still in his orange jumpsuit, but this time there was something different in his eyes. Hope. When he saw Zara sitting in the front row, he smiled softly and mouthed, "My brave girl." Zara smiled back, blinking away tears. She remembered all the nights she'd stayed up staring at that computer screen, fighting exhaustion just to find one more clue. Now, all those sleepless nights had brought her here. The trial began. The prosecutor stood up first, confident as ever. Your Honor, the defendant was previously found guilty based on clear evidence. Fingerprints, witness testimony, and video footage. We believe the verdict should stand. The judge nodded. And the defense? This time, Malcolm had a new lawyer, a woman named attorney Claire Harris, one of the best defense attorneys in the city. She had taken the case for free after hearing Zara's story on the news. She stood up, her voice calm but powerful. Your Honor, new evidence has come to light that changes everything. She turned to the screen beside her and pressed play. The courtroom lights dimmed, and the security footage began to play. The same video that had once condemned Malcolm. The man in the hoodie burst into the store, waving a gun. Gasps filled the room. But then, Claire paused the video and zoomed in on the robber's neck. Look here, she said. A tattoo, a snake wrapped around a dagger. She turned toward Malcolm, who stood slowly, showing the court his bare neck and arms. No tattoos. Now, Claire continued, thanks to the hard work of Detective Ramos and a young girl who refused to give up, we trace a reflection in this footage, right here. She pointed at the frozen frame, showing the blurry car outside the store. That reflection revealed a license plate. And that license plate led us to Curtis Lane, a man with a long record of armed robberies. The courtroom murmured. Claire clicked to the next slide, a photo of Curtis Lane, sitting in a holding cell, the same tattoo on his neck. And here, Your Honor, Claire said, is Mr. Lane's signed confession. He admitted to the crime just 2 days ago. The entire courtroom erupted. Zara covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Her grandmother sobbed quietly beside her. Malcolm's lawyer continued, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Mr. Reed has spent months behind bars for a crime he did not commit. A crime solved because of one girl's courage. A girl who refused to let injustice win. The judge leaned back, silent. The prosecutor looked down, speechless. Even the guards at the back of the room seemed moved. The judge finally spoke. His voice echoed through the courtroom. Mr. Malcolm Reed, this court owes you an apology. Based on the new evidence presented, you are hereby found not guilty. For a second, everything froze. Then the sound hit clapping, gasps, sobs, cheers. Zara shot to her feet, her tiny hands covering her face as she cried. The guard stepped forward and unlocked her father's handcuffs. When the metal clicked open, Malcolm turned, saw his daughter, and for a moment he couldn't move. Then he ran, tears blurring his vision, and scooped her into his arms. Daddy, she cried, wrapping her arms around his neck. He held her tight, trembling. You did it, baby. You saved me. The crowd clapped louder. Even the judge couldn't hide his smile. Reporters shouted questions as they stepped outside the courthouse. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust forward. Zara, how did you do it? one reporter asked. You're only 12. Zara smiled shyly. Because I know my dad. He's not perfect, but he's good. He taught me to believe in the truth, even when nobody else does. The story spread everywhere. TV, social media, newspapers. 12-year-old girl frees innocent father was a headline that went viral overnight. Donations started pouring in. Strangers sent letters, clothes, even job offers for Malcolm. A local law firm hired him as a maintenance worker. The city's mayor even invited Zara to a community awards ceremony to honor her bravery. But for Zara, the real victory came later. Not in the spotlight, not in the praise, but at home. That night, in their tiny kitchen, Malcolm stood over the stove making pancakes, just like he used before everything fell apart. The smell of butter and syrup filled the room. Zara sat at the table, sketching in her notebook. Extra crispy, right? Malcolm teased. Zara giggled. You remembered. They ate together, laughing between bites, as if the world had finally let them breathe again. Then Malcolm looked at her, his voice softer. You know, Z, when they took me away, I thought I'd never see home again. But you, he stopped, his eyes filling with tears. You gave me back my life. Zara smiled. You always told me we might be poor, but we're not powerless. He nodded, and you proved it. After dinner, they stepped out onto the balcony. The city lights shimmered below them, and the air was warm and peaceful. Zara leaned on the railing, looking up at the stars. So what happens now, Dad? Malcolm smiled, his arm around her shoulder. Now we start over. New jobs, new dreams, new life. Zara nodded thoughtfully. And one day, I'm going to be a lawyer, like Miss Harris. But better. Malcolm laughed, a sound filled with joy and disbelief. Oh, I don't doubt that for a second. They stood there quietly, just a father and daughter, no longer broken, no longer scared. As the camera of life would pan out, you'd see them silhouetted against the city, a poor black family that refused to give up, who turned pain into purpose, and proved that truth, no matter how small, can still win. Zara looked up one last time and whispered, We did it, Daddy. And her father, smiling through tears, replied, No, baby girl, you did it. Because sometimes heroes aren't the ones with badges or capes. Sometimes they're little girls in pink hoodies who dare to stand up, speak out, and fight for love, even when the whole world tells them not to.